Ah, yes, the old topic of friendly fire. That moment when you accidentally or sometimes on purpose cast fireball directly on your teammate. Why? Well, maybe there's a group of kobolds nearby that needed to die. Maybe you just slipped and made a mistake on where you were shooting. Or, by chance, you just didn't like the bard flirting with your sister, so he had to go. Brian Von Vier here, time to explore. What are your funniest friendly fire stories? Dungeon Jello. Our DM had just found out that another player and I have never encountered a gelatinous cube before, and he was going to rectify this immediately. To give a quick party background, there was the Twilight Domain cleric who worshipped a deity whose symbol was a swarm of luminous moths. We'll call him Mothman, as a mnemonic aid. This player actually had encountered our gelatinous friends before, which will be relevant soon. The haughty elf fighter that spoke with a snobbish caricature of a French accent. We'll call him Frenchie. It's so funny. And then there was me, a dragon-born Tempest cleric who was once a dragon god, think Far East Dragon, who was cursed by a foolish monk warrior. Yes, I attempted a terrible Aku imitation. Oh, you want Aku? Foolish monk warrior. I can't do it. To a mortal body and life, and he had to worship himself to gain a fraction of his powers back. His name is Pitter Patter. Pee-pee-wee-wee. Pee-pee-wee-wee. So this band of misfits entered a dungeon and rounded a corner where there seemed to be an invisible barrier where arrows and spears were frozen in the air. Mothman's player immediately recognizes what this is and shouts, "Ah, shit!" Neither me nor my character understood what was going on, but we were told to roll for initiative, and the invisible gelatinous cube, totally engulfs Mothman. Now neither my character nor I, the player, know anything about fighting flubber, so I had Pitter Patter try to fry the cube with his lightning abilities. The DM said it will also hurt Mothman, but not wanting to meta, I said that Pitter Patter doesn't know that. We defeated the gelatinous cube, but Mothman only barely survived. Another incident with the same characters had us fighting in a haunted house where demons, shades, flaming skulls, and some argumentative, inept skeleton guards chased us Scooby-Doo style through the dungeon. Mothman chose to go invisible, but without telling Pitter Patter. So when Pitter Patter got to the end of the long hall and tried to hold back the monsters with a gust of wind while the party escaped, he had no clue he was also hurricane blasting Mothman, who could not roll high enough to walk down the hall. Sorry, Mothman. This party was a strange one, as they often are. They would try to mess with the NPCs as much as possible without physically hurting them, and it could get them into trouble. So the party encounters an important NPC, and the Sorcerer decides that the best course of action is to try to pickpocket him. NPC notices this, has inflict wounds, Sorcerer is out. Cleric picks him back up. Oh, for some reason this caused an argument between him and the Paladin. It may have been about healing, may have been about something petty between the players who were brothers. Paladin takes some damage, while the Sorcerer is still at 1 hit point. Cleric gets absolutely sick of this and pulls out the Holy Cross. Rolls a nat 20 and hits the Paladin over the head with it. Paladin is out cold. Cleric proceeds to attack the Sorcerer. It hits, and the Sorcerer is down for the count. He proceeds to cast Spare the Dying on both of them. When the party leaves the area, they leave both characters still lying there unconscious. Over the course of that entire sequence, the Bard and Artificer were spending their time buying drugs from the NPC. So, in my first campaign, Lost Mine of Phandelver, I was playing a 4th level gnome artificer battlesmith, and the other 2 PCs were a tabaxi monk and a human wizard bladesinger. One of the running gags between me and the wizard was that I threw or hit him with my light hammer that was infused with return weapon every time he said something mean or stupid, or sometimes, well, just for fun. At one point, we were going somewhere when we had a random encounter. A group of 24 Zvarts ambushed us. I don't know what Zvart is. The encounter was wild since we rolled poorly and they rolled decently. Then the wizard cast Fireball, which brought down the HP of a lot of the enemy under half. Then 2 or 3 turns later, 2 Zvart casters put the other 2 PC to sleep, leaving only my gnome as my steel defender was taken down the turn before. So I had to choose what to do. And the only thing I could do was try to wake up one of the party members. Since my gnome was based on ranged attacks, I was too far away to just touch them. I then decided to throw my light hammer at one of my companions. The monk and the wizard were low on health, and waking them in the middle of a crowd of Zvart seemed pretty risky, since I would bring them to near death if I dealt max damage to them. I chose to throw my hammer at the wizard since he was right next to me in initiative, and had little more health than the monk, 1 or 2 HP, but if I dealt max damage, he would probably still die. I threw the hammer at him and hit him with minimal damage, 5. Oh, thank God. Then I killed a Zvart near him since I had an extra attack. I believe I yelled something like, "Wake up, you useless wizard!" The wizard woke up the monk, then I spent the next turn healing them. We defeated the encounter after 2 turns. Turns out a running gag about friendly fire can save you from pretty bad situations. I have a Paladin Sorcerer in 5th edition named Paladin Delphinium. No. Who uses her fists in melee combat because she has the Tavern Brawler feat. In her first session, I wanted to demonstrate the party and world that she was capable of holding her own despite living a noble's life. So she asked the only melee fighter in the party, a Scion, DM allowed UA content, and our party was stacked hard with casters, to spar, and proceeded to roll max damage on a level 3 Divine Smite punch to one-hit down him. Alternatively, I do have one from a session just over a week ago. The player who played the Scion is now playing a Druid Rogue based on the Noid. The Noid! The party scaled a rather high city wall by ladder and were immediately attacked by guards. 2 of the party engaged in melee combat, and on his turn, the Noid ran into the middle of those party members and the 2 enemies they were engaged against, and cast Thunder Wave. That's a bad idea. Only one of the enemies made the save, and thankfully nobody was knocked off. But it wasn't a great time to cast a knockback spell. This happened the first time I played D&D. I was playing a ranger and we were fighting some flying snakes. I rolled a nat 1 on an attack, and the DM ruled that the arrow went way off course where I was aiming and hit our druid instead. And luckily it wasn't much damage. After the fight, the druid revived the snakes and made friends with them. I asked for my arrow back, the one that was still sticking out of the druid's side. She refused, and kept the arrow in out of pure spite. One of my friends is playing this smart-ass stuck-up elf. Sounds like every elf to me. This other guy is playing Cork the Orc. I had to re-record this, by the way, everybody. But he is this unintelligent guy that thinks the rest of this party is his while they play him. Anyways, this elf guy insulted Cork. Cork got mad. I remember the guy trying to get out of it with smart mumbo-jumbo, but he was so bad at it, so Cork slammed him into a wall, had him roll, and Cork critically succeeded. So he throws this guy into the wall and through the tavern, almost killing another NPC by sheer accident. I mean, he's an elf, he had it coming. Most legendary friendly fire story from our table almost cost my character his life. We were camping in the woods, party of 6 around level 8. My character, Rogue 5, Monk 3, had just found a crow in the woods and had taken it as a pet. We had a pretty intense battle and were settling down for a night in the woods. Long story short, as I don't remember this section in exquisite detail, it turned out my new pet, Crow, was a polymorphed vampire from our Ranger Druid's backstory. Come to finish her off. We managed to scare him off, but we were all dangerously low on health and spells. He ran, but I, in my infinite 18 wisdom, decided to pursue. The DM had forgotten to take into account that as a 3rd level Wood Elf monk, I had an extra 15 feet of movement and could dash as both an action and a bonus action thanks to being multi-classed into Rogue. After 2 rounds of pursuit, the DM realized I would catch the vampire. I would later find out we had actually been on the verge of killing him, and if I had caught up, I might have been able to finish him off. Before it gets back to my turn, our cleric decides in his infinite 20 wisdom to Hail Mary a guiding bolt at the vampire. He rolls the attack. Nat 1. The DM rules that it lands just shy of his target, hitting my rogue monk. I basically looked like Aang at the end of Season 2 when Azula shoots him in the Avatar state. My rogue plummets from the tree, crashing into the foliage below. Our cleric begins sprinting over to me. The real kicker here is that our cleric is a class called Forgeborn. Well, that sounds cool, our DM's homebrew reflavoring of Warforged. Standard Warforged have a speed of 30. Forgeborn have 25. So after some quick calculations of distance from our DM and math whiz Paladin, we determined it would take effectively 2 rounds for the cleric to get to me to cast Spare the Dying. I rolled 2 death saves and failed both. For the rest of the campaign, my rogue monk had a burn scar on his back, colored purple, as that was the color of the cleric's spell attack, from when he took a blast of friendly fire in the forest. Now here's some icing on the cake. It would have been the first death of a party member in the campaign had I rolled just a little worse. We were playing in a campaign that was high on roleplay, and the fighter decided that he wanted to play a character who wasn't the folk hero chosen one. Instead, he wanted to be a bit of a dick and have consequences for his actions. Whatever, sounds interesting. I was playing a wild magic sorcerer, so we get done fighting a demon lord in the royal throne room, and everyone's a wreck. Half the royal guard is dead, and the king is hiding behind his throne because he's 70 and this is way beyond him. He's too old for this shit. Also with him is his level 15 paladin daughter. So our fighter gets up and starts talking to the king, except he's mad at him. See, the king was a paladin in his youth, but now he's old and everything, so he can't fight anymore. Fighter argued it would be better for him to die in combat and stop being a drag on the realm than it was for him to hide like a coward. Literally, everyone has like a huh moment. So he starts yelling at the king, and the princess tells him to stand down or else. Well, he keeps going, saying she's enabling him and his actions are bad, blah, 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 blah. Eventually, she draws her sword and advances on our fighter, who is level 11 and is already half dead. So thinking quickly, I cast sleep on the fighter, I think it was like 4th level, takes him down by about 20 hit points, and he collapses on the stairs of the throne. Then I apologize profusely and drag him out. Probably a smart move. The player is mad at me for interrupting his roleplay, and I point out I just saved his life, and he was fighting an ally we needed who had helped us before. This became a running gag with me using sleep to try to control him every time something got out of hand, which was way too often. At the end of the campaign, the very last thing I did was cast sleep one last time to shut him up, and he exploded, "I just want to experience consequences." I replied, "I am consequences." He was speechless. We had to have a lot of discussion about how not to be a douchebag after that. We were a new party, so we all had a heart-to-heart about how we were all assholes and how to fix it. Progress was made, and it sounds like everybody there actually came out of it a little bit better and brighter and more mature too, hopefully. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA back at it again, checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course, leave a comment down below talking about your funniest friendly fire stories. All the love, be safe, and check fire.